So today, WAIFC, that's for short for World Alliance, is already 20 members from all over the world, and we believe that cooperation is much more important than competition. So we can call it co-opetition. So I could sum up that YFC pretty much facilitates cooperation between different financial centers, the exchange of best practices, and communication with the general public. And now I would like to pass the word to my old friend Arnaud de Bresson, who is the head of Paris Europlace and the president of the World Alliance of International Financial Centers. Arnaud, your term is your 2-year term as the president of the alliance is about to expire. So please share with us how you've seen the development of the new organization, how you see this organization has helped and continue to help different financial centers, and of course, how COVID-19 is affecting in general the development of financial centers.
Thank you very much, Anatoly. Thank you to Youssef in Qatar to welcome us today. Thank you to the organizers of this meeting dedicated to financial innovation and the fintech. Just two short messages for me. The first one is about the YFC, the World Alliance of Financial Centers that we have created 2 years ago with Anatoly, with Bertus and Jochen Biedermann and Jennifer and all the participants around the table to develop a dialogue between international financial centers and exchange practices. So more important today that we have a strong message to deliver about the way the financial centers can contribute to the economic recovery and are part of the solution of this global crisis today that we have to face all around the world to accompany the financing of the economic recovery of the companies, including SMEs and the financial innovation. And the good news is that YFC is now producing different contributions on key subjects like the financial regulation, how the regulation is evolving today in this crisis, about sustainable finance, which is a big priority for the world today, and the financial center can contribute to this, to on the SMEs financing, as well as on the financial innovation and the fintech, which can be also a key issue to accompany the solution to this crisis. Fintech have a key role to play, and in all of our countries are playing a key role to help to find solutions to this crisis. My second message, very short, is about Paris. Just to mention that we are also very active in financial innovation and development of the fintech in all the areas of the big data, the risk management, the sustainable finance, the intelligence, artificial intelligence, and so on which we have developed more than 1,000 startups and fintech, very innovative. And for us, as Paris Europlace, we have created a specific entity linked to Paris Europlace, which is a financial services cluster, Paris Finance Innovation, which is participating today with Nicolas Ferreira to this meeting to accompany and develop the fintech, development of the fintech in France and on European level. So we are more than interested to participate and hear about all of you today and contribute to the way YFC will develop specific surveys and research on this area. So thank you to everybody. I'm more than happy to welcome all of you. And I give back the floor to Anatoly.
Thank you for everything you've said. And I propose that we open our session, giving the floor to all speakers. But before that, I would like to ask one question that to address to each one of the panelists. If you can shortly comment, what is a International Financial Center today? To make sure that we're on the same page, as well as those who are listening right now, our forum understanding very well what we mean by an international financial center. How would you, what would be your terminology? What an international financial center is?
Well, I think Hubertus has really said it very well. Mm-hmm. Clearly, the size and scope of the activities that are happening in that financial center are also very important. Its importance to its region in the world, and then again, its interconnectedness, though, internationally. I think, you know, typically when we think of an international financial center, we would expect to see a large breadth, whether that's in the asset management side of things, the banking side of things, insurance. So we would really expect to see a very robust ecosystem and a broad ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. It seems that we're all on the same page. So then I would like to ask the first question to Dr. Parakhana. Given your academic background, how could you comment on this definitions? Coming back to my question, what an international financial center is.
Thank you very much for having me join this conversation with your esteemed panel of experts. I certainly agree with the definitions, and I think that these definitions have also been used as the yardsticks by which emerging financial centers have benchmarked themselves to rise in the rankings in terms of their connectivity, as well as volumes of businesses registered and assets under management and so forth. Let me make a couple of points about capital flows because they are so significant at this point in time as a yardstick of globalization. You know, we've had periods of contraction in global capital flows, such as after the global financial crisis more than a decade ago, and also certainly now in this post-pandemic environment. And it is really a sign of resilience if a country can, through its strength of its financial institutions, attract capital, continue to attract capital into its currencies, into its debt, equity markets, and so forth. And this is going to be one of the emerging tests moving forward. I'm not sure how long I should speak for right now. There are a few other points that perhaps I can make later on in the discussion.
Yeah, sure. No, you could definitely continue. We would like your expertise, and of course, we cannot ignore COVID-19 as it's triggered deepest global economic downturn in decades. So while the final impact is still unclear, then we understand that it definitely will lead to recession in the majority of countries. So can financial centers be in some way a vaccine for the global economy?
Well, I think, you know, as with perhaps it is a good metaphor, because if you look at what will happen with the vaccine development and deployment, it is really a patchwork. It isn't really a one-size-fits-all solution. We don't have truly seamless global egalitarian coordination. So I think that it might be, you know, too optimistic to say that it's sort of a global financial vaccine, but is it part of the solution at the local level? Absolutely. So let's look at the fact that, you know, for many of the countries that are present here in this conversation and that are considered hubs or homes for emerging financial centers, they are in the Asian region or certainly Eurasia. And if we think about the last 20 years since the Asian financial crisis, where emerging markets have learned tremendous lessons in the last 20 years around fiscal stability, having higher reserves, making their currency markets more attractive, issuing more longer-term maturity debt in their own currencies. All of these have been very important fundamental resilience factors. And now, fortunately, even though the COVID crisis has been so devastating, the role of the IMF in extending credit and the World Bank as well have been critical, as well as, of course, swap lines between central banks. So now, what is the role of new financial centers, international financial centers within this? Well, this is part of a longer process that has been underway, but needs to accelerate to turn business and commercial centers into capital market hubs. The global liquidity, as enormous, staggering as it really is, does need to circulate rather than flowing uphill. As you know, it does tend to flow uphill rather than circulate to all of the markets that genuinely need it. And that is the role that financial centers can and must play now more than ever. We, again, also more than ever with an aging population, secular stagnation in a number of economies, global pension funds, institutional investors are looking for yield, and IFCs represent, an upgrading of governance, harmonizing regulations. They enable privatization and reforms, and they promote diversification of economies. These are the fundamental steps. This is the roadmap for countries, not only to make their countries attractive, but this is the mechanism. This is how IFCs play a role as a transmission belt, if you will, between global capital and building better societies, better economies, more resilient systems. So I think they're absolutely critical at a time like this, as I said, now more than ever.
And this mass digitalization, accelerated by COVID, how will it transform the financial centers?
I think that's an excellent question. Again, it's an area where we have started to see the transition or innovation taking place prior to COVID, but more financial systems, more stock exchanges, for example, linked to each other, efforts or at least templates or roadmaps put forward around having international cryptocurrency types of instruments. So having more transparency, smart contracts, and so forth, so that, again, liquidity has greater efficiency, if you will. And I'm a believer that we can use these technologies to sort of leapfrog, if you will, towards a more kind of seamless integration of international financial centers. So, this is one of the areas when we talk about, people in the IT industry, for example, say that they have achieved more upgrading and acceleration of deployment of their technologies in the last 5 months than they would have in 5 or 10 years without COVID. And I'm sure that many of you have heard executives say that. Well, the same thing should hopefully apply now to this domain as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Dr. Hanna. I would like to pass the word to Hubertus Fed, the Managing Director of Frankfurt Main Finance. Just at the beginning, I made an introduction, Hubertus, how we started with the initiative of the Alliance with you and Arnaud. So thank you again for your support back then and almost 6 years ago. But Frankfurt is, I would say, relatively new financial center. It's about 30 years old, and today about 30% of Frankfurt residents are expats. So many of them are working in the financial sector. And could you please share the latest developments of Frankfurt as a financial center, and of course how COVID affected this, and what policy, what you're doing to facilitate the economic recovery in Frankfurt?
Thank you, Anatoly. And indeed, it's fantastic to look back what has happened in the 6 years ever since we've created the idea and set it up and made it running. Not least thanks of your good self and thanks to our chairman, Arnaud, and all the other supporters and members. So it's great to see. And the interesting thing is, and they allow me one one remark beforehand, Anatoly. Even though after the Second World War, certainly Frankfurt as a financial center had to be rebuilt, its history goes well back more than 300 years. Frankfurt has always been at the crossroads, north, south, east, west trading routes. It has the world's second biggest fare company. It's not particularly doing well these days with COVID, so fares are a bit tricky. But they do fares from Shanghai to Moscow to any place around the world, out of Frankfurt as a traditional trading hub. And even the famous Rothschild dynasty originates actually from Frankfurt and built its global network out of here. So the city has a long history. And getting back to your question, how do we cope with COVID? It looks like it's from another age, but mid-March this year, I was attending our friend's opening of the Tokyo Financial Center. And on the flight back, and it was the second last day before the lockdown started in continental Europe, when I flew back, one of the interesting thoughts I had there is actually how very little we know about each other, about what the other economy, what the other financial center is doing about COVID, and how difficult it seems to be that information, that knowledge trickles from east to west in that instance, because clearly it would have helped. It would have saved many lives. It would have definitely helped us to reduce economic damage considerably if we were learning faster, if we were taking those informations coming out of those places much earlier. So that motivated Frankfurt to sponsor a publication which was how global financial centers could help combat COVID-19. It was created as an idea end of March. It came out in April. So it showed actually what a great community we are, what a great gathering of knowledge we are, and what could come out of it. So it was really WAIFC at its best. Let me be a little bit more precise about what we as an organization have been doing under the umbrella of the WAIFC. Is I think the German government, which is considered to be rather frugal, leapfrogged in a sense that they not only agreed to a huge pan-European budget as a sign of solidarity, but also to a huge budget nationally. That helped particularly those companies which are hit. And here, the financial center played an absolutely key role. Quite a few of you would know KfW as being the bank to help reconstruction after Second World War. It happens to be the biggest development bank in the world today, working out of Frankfurt. And they were instrumental to implement a huge program to help either gaining grants or giving loans, and giving loans to those in need to avoid a system breakdown when the lockdown happened. And the interesting thing here is the whole thing was fairly smartly designed in a sense that you had either 80 and 90 or 100% state guarantee for the loan. And depending on it, the higher the state guarantee was, the higher the interest rate would have been. There was a clear incentive for the companies to try to get the banks taking some of the risk, because they would have had to pay much lower interest rates. And what you could see is that basically the banks fulfilled their role, being backed up by KfW guarantees, dispersed, depending on the banking system or the respective banks, anything between 1/3 to 2/3 of all those funds already now, but not in a sense that each and everybody would get what he or she wants, but on the basis of making a due diligence, making a proper risk assessment to make sure state money is not wasted and it's going to be invested in future sustainable businesses. And sustainability is probably a very important word here as well, because one of the key objectives here again was also to not only digitalize, but also make in other ways and those investments, those loans work towards a more sustainable and CO2 neutral world.
Thank you so much, Hubertus. Well, as we continue looking into how COVID-19 is affecting our economies and financial centers, I would like to turn to Mr. Alexander Voloshin from Moscow International Financial Center. And Moscow made quite an impressive progress starting in 2010, as Mr. Voloshin headed a special group that united all major players in the financial sector, both from the government and from business. And almost 1,000 different indicators were selected for the roadmap to transform Moscow into a modern international financial center. And today, we already have the results, as most of these indicators have been reached and implemented, and Moscow has a very modern financial infrastructure. Mr. Voloshin, could you say, over this years of implementing the IFC project in Moscow, a considerable infrastructure, as I mentioned, has been developed to attract foreign capital, introduce advanced practices in the financial market, and improve the business environment? And how does this all help to overcome the challenges of today's epidemic?
Thank you for your question. I would start with the argument that we heard often in the spring when the first wave of the pandemic was in full swing. The new economic crisis is special because in a long time in history, it is not caused by the financial sector. So it is good news that we are not responsible for that, at least. And we have seen debt and currency crisis, stock market bubbles, mortgage crisis, but today's crisis originated elsewhere. And the financial sector opposite now is part of the solution. Another point that we have seen finance center a phase of dramatic change, and many of us here even helped it. Fintech has altered the structure and business models of finance. And yes, we continue to perform our imminent task of turning savings into investments, but the ecosystem concept has already taken over. And financial institutions will offer people a lot of new services. No wonder that most financial centers today are innovation hubs. And how do these trends help us with this pandemic crisis? I think we set our priorities right in the Alliance Declaration in last June. Our number one goal for the short term is helping entrepreneurs, the SMEs, the startups, and employment in general. But what can financial centers and financial industry do to serve this purpose? I think our mission is to offer people and businesses such products and services that can make their lives a lot easier during and after the pandemic. And I'm talking digital services, platform solutions, and regulation adjustments primarily. These processes matter at all times, but in today's world, they're absolutely vital. Briefly, I will briefly report on Russia now. First, regulation. In 2019, we at Forum Analytical Center started a collaboration with the Central Bank of Russia to optimize the regulatory burden for financial market participants. I honestly see this project as unique for financial markets We talk to regulator and the market and identify excessive, dated, and redundant regulatory norms. And the Bank of Russia cancels or amends them. We started last October as planned. Then the pandemic proved that we started the right thing and at the right time. Before the breakout, the regulator had already put together a very clear picture of where to ease regulation, and this helps the financial industry to be much more flexible, mobile, and to cut costs, by the way. Second, digital services. In Russia, the concept of ecosystems is developing at full speed. Finance and technology majors on both sides are teaming up to offer clients all the essentials, payments, savings, taxi services, car sharing, food delivery, entertainment, etc. This spring, during lockdown, these services literally helped people to survive. Another project that matters started long before the pandemic and now is taking a new meaning. Just a few days ago, the central bank and Moscow Exchange launched their marketplace. It is a platform for individuals to buy services from a variety of financial institutions, compare offers and pick the best terms. All transactions are managed online. The important point is that all trades on this platform are processed through a single financial transactions register controlled by Moscow Exchange, and all deposits are insured. This project provides people with important online services and protects them from risks they would have faced on their own. Third, support for innovation businesses is crucial. Moscow is setting up infrastructure for the development and implementation of new technologies. It is called Moscow Innovation Cluster. This project adds city innovation infrastructure development to the MIFC mandate. And I think, Anatoly, you are in charge of this project, and today you will have opportunity to tell a little bit more about that. And summing up, I can tell you that yes, the pandemic showed that we headed in the right direction, and many projects we launched at the time are helping us to face this crisis today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Voloshin. Thank you for mentioning the Moscow Innovation Cluster. It's a new project we've just started a year ago. And yes, the ambition is to facilitate cooperation amongst the different players in the innovation ecosystem. And but later on, I will have a separate presentation on the cluster. We'll be happy to tell about it in more detail. And I would like to switch to our next speaker. And let's go to Qatar. And the question is to Yusuf Mohammed Al-Jaida. We spoke a little bit already about technologies and how they are helping us to cope with the pandemic and in general transforming financial centers. So Qatar is an important financial hub in the Middle East and creates an environment for the development and implementation of technologies and innovations. So how do you advance your work in this dimension, and what conditions are created for tech projects?
Yeah, thank you, Anatoly. And I'm glad to be here. And I want to thank Moscow Innovation Cluster for making this happen. In Qatar, we have what is called the Qatar National Vision 2030, where rapid strides were taken in technological and digital advancement during and well before COVID-19. The current challenges we see serve Qatar's vision to be a digital-first economy and even accelerate our plans in building a robust digital ecosystem. We have in Qatar the second highest per capita enterprise IT spending in the entire MENA region. And according to Ernst & Young's latest reports, we have the highest in the region, estimated about 12 to 13 times of Middle East and Africa average spending. Also, our digital spending is pegged at around $2.3 billion in 2019 and is also set to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 9.2% between 2019 and 2024, and to reach $9 billion of spending in 2024. Now, this heavy investment in the technology infrastructure does not only take forward Qatar's digital transformation strategy, but it also contributes in increasing the market size by roughly 40% of its current base, where emerging technology segments such as the Internet of Things, cloud, cybersecurity, big data analytics, artificial intelligence, all expected to drive growth by contributing to approximately 50% of the market size over the next 3 to 4 years. Also, Qatar was positioned in many rankings. We rank 8th worldwide in the Global Competitive Index, and 99% internet penetration was mentioned, in addition to more than 150% mobile penetration. We're also been ranked the first among Arab countries and second globally in terms of mobile services engagement in 2018. And we've been ranked the first worldwide on Digital Accessibility Rights Evaluation Index, DARE Index 2020. So Qatar has a lot of opportunities in technology, and we have a multi-billion-dollar investment program, which has put the country on a sure footing to further attract foreign direct investment and raise our competitiveness across different sectors, including technology and digital. And despite the current challenges, we remain also a fast-growing economy in the world. The IMF recently mentioned that the Qatar economy will still grow at 2.5% in 2021 and 2022. Also, we have launched many strategic initiatives in those sectors. I can mention a few. TESMU through the Ministry of Communication. This aims to digitally transform Qatar by implementing 107 cutting-edge technology-enabled use cases. We have a cloud-first policy. We have sports-focused initiatives, including the World Cup 2022, which will hopefully be a digital tournament to the maximum extent possible. And we have a smart cities plan, which has a combined budget of roughly $50 billion and is expected to facilitate the adoption of new age technologies such as back-end infrastructure, Internet of Things, analytics, artificial intelligence, etc. So all in all, I think technology and digital is going to be the future. Our financial center is looking at this as a strategic cluster focus. We will continue to incentivize foreign institutions who enter the Qatari market with generous incentives to participate in the local market and to participate in regional also markets out of Qatar. Thank you, Anatoly.
Thank you so much. And just at the beginning, you may not have heard, but in my introduction speech, I mentioned that without Qatar, this event we couldn't have made possible. So thank you again for supporting this forum today.
Thank you.
It proves good cooperation among the members of the Alliance. Next, I would like to turn to Wayne Evans, Managing Director, International Trade and Investment from the City UK. And London traditionally places whether first or second in different financial center rankings. And Still, there are centers with broad specialization, the so-called global financial centers. The UK's strengths derived not only from the high volume of value of financial transactions and or from the depths of capital and liquidity pools that it provides, but also the breadth of services and expertise available, the so-called ecosystem effect. And even Brexit hasn't significantly affected this leadership and hasn't ruined this infrastructure. So the question is, are you still successful in keeping the community together and maintaining a high level of communication among all members, all players of the ecosystem involved? And how do you see the future of IFCs in the post-COVID-19 era?
Okay, thank you very much, Anatoly. Yes, well, you're right. I mean, London, of course, is just part of the UK's financial and professional services infrastructure, but it's still, we only employ about a third of those employed in the UK in the industry. However, we still, in London alone, we see our figures estimate there are probably 700,000 or 800,000 people working in financial and professional services. Some of the larger organisations have several thousand people in one building. So overnight we were faced with an issue, and I suspect that there are a lot of common themes here that we're all sharing. That overnight we were suddenly faced with the issue that all of these people were going to go to be working from home. So City UK as an organisation representing those bodies was immediately faced with a challenge of how do we communicate with all our members and individual members within those firms. Over the 10 years that City UK has been running, we've developed a very sophisticated CRM system. That's our first point of contact. So if I'm working from home and I want to know which one of our members is interested in Moscow, Kazakhstan, and Sharia finance, through the CRM we can interrogate the CRM and develop a way that we can contact them. And the second thing is that we've been pleasantly surprised, but how people have adapted to the new way of working and working from home. And previous speakers mentioned that the growth in the support platforms. We use Zoom now and Microsoft Teams every day. I'm sure it's the same for all of you. And so we're all on these calls all day long. And previously we never had that. When we were having physical meetings, occasionally someone would say, "I can't make the meeting, but can I dial in?" And it never really worked because you couldn't see their face, you couldn't hear them, you didn't know when they wanted to speak. So I think this whole sector has been revolutionised, and it's something that and I'll come back to that. Something we need to look forward to for the future. So we were faced with this problem that overnight people were just going to be working from home. But I'm pleased to say that by the use of adapting to new technologies, it's actually worked quite well. And we find that now that we're holding major events, and we're constantly holding webinars. We've got one tomorrow for our members on the US presidency, for example. But we're now holding major events like our national conference online, and we'd never really considered this before. So clearly, this is the way that we're going to have to move forward, taking forward the use of digital tools. I should also just dial back a bit. One thing we did at the City UK was to make sure that all our staff had decent communication equipment, decent laptops. So we went straight out to our staff and said, have you got the right IT? Have you got the right wireless? Have you got the right chairs to sit in? Because we wanted to make sure that all our staff had a comfortable home environment, and that has been also helped. But so I think overall we've made a success of this, and we recently did a request at the request of the Governor of Bank of England and HM Treasury. We worked on a project on how to recapitalise the UK's economy, and we provided a very large and comprehensive report to go on with our recommendations on it. And that involved over 200 staff, not our own staff, 200 people, probably about 30 from our organisation, about another 150, 160 from other member companies who all contributed to this. So we created an environment which we could all work together, and we delivered a report. So we've already seen indications that this is a new way of working through digital communications. And if I think back, if I look at some of these participants on this call, we have been working with our friends in Moscow for nearly 10 years now on a partnership agreement. In fact, I was honored to sign it with Mr. Voloshin in the Kremlin several years, 10 years ago. Likewise, with Steve in Kazakhstan, we've been working with the AIC for a number of years, and we've always done face-to-face meetings in the past, and these have proved very effective. But now, it does question that on do we need so many face-to-face meetings? And that sort of brings my thoughts to the final point. What it does mean is, and I don't think that any financial centres are going to lose business because of COVID. In fact, I think it's probably going to grow, and that's one of the benefits of having an organisation like the WAIFC, because we have constant contact with one another to discuss key issues. But I think one of the things that we will look at, and I know that our friends and partners at the City of London Corporation have just published a report today on it's called London Regeneration, if you want to look it up, about the future of the City of London, because we've had this huge centre with a physical presence, and maybe we don't need to do that. So maybe we now look at different ways of working. London will always be a financial centre, and always will be an international financial centre, but the actual physical presence, I'm not sure that we need anymore, and that has a further knock-on effect onto government plans for infrastructure, the local economy that supports the city workers. So those are key issues, much wider than this debate. But
thank you, Wayne. Thank you so much. Just would like to give the floor also to other speakers, so everyone has the time to share their views. And the question is to Jennifer Reynolds, from President and CEO of Toronto Finance International. And Toronto is a recognized hub for innovation, and Toronto Finance International makes much effort to support the development of innovation, adoption of technologies in the financial markets. Of course, it's talent policy. So how does Toronto focuses and which, in terms of helping in battling COVID-19 consequences?
Yeah, thank you, Anatoly. I think just to set the stage a little bit, one of the elements that we have in Toronto is, well, number one, we're the second largest financial center in North America, but we're also the second largest tech cluster in North America. So it gives us an advantage in that we've got that huge pool of tech talent sitting right beside the financial services talent. So that certainly has benefited us pre-COVID in developing a very healthy fintech ecosystem and innovation ecosystem in the city. A tremendous amount of job growth in both financial services and in the tech sector has really created a great amount of collaboration between those two parts of our economy, which has really benefited both sides of that equation, certainly. It's also ended up in attracting a lot of capital to the city for innovation hubs. AI in particular has been a huge area of growth for the city and for Canada more broadly. There's been about $3 billion in investment in AI, about 50,000 jobs created recently in just AI. So those things happening pre-COVID set us up fortunately well for what we had to adjust to in this new normal, as Wayne was talking about, how we work and increasing our digitalization on a pace far greater than we were on before, quite frankly, and I'm sure for others as well. So we certainly have seen a great amount of collaboration happen, both within the sector, but also I would say one thing that benefited us greatly is we did see a very good collaboration between levels of government in Canada and industry, and also regulators in reacting very quickly. Others were commenting on, Hubertus was talking about how they put out a great amount of capital through financial institutions. The same thing happened here. There was many support programs announced by the government, and much of them came through the financial institutions, whether that was for individuals, whether that was for small businesses, and then eventually larger programs as well for larger businesses. So I think we as an institution have really tried to support that collaboration. We view ourselves as the connector for public-private dialogues, for dialogues within the industry. and also for dialogues within cross sectors where we need to bring in other sectors, such as technology, to advance the industry. So, you know, I think that extension of what we do domestically is seen internationally through our relationship with WAIFC, because I think that collaboration amongst the international financial centers is also critical. I think that we can certainly work together. We're all facing very similar challenges right now to figure out what is the best path forward, what are best practices. So I think that collaboration needs to be happening not only on the domestic level, but certainly on an international level as well.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And we also have Steve Bourne here from Astana International Financial Center, and we've known each other for years. And Steve worked here in Moscow for 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. Steve, could you briefly share the role of the City UK also in developing Astana International Financial Center? What's special about regulatory norms that have been adopted in Astana for the region, why it's so unique? Maybe a few words about some fintech initiatives in Astana as its big focus.
Well, thank you, Anatoly, and thank you to yourselves and to Qatar and of course to WAIFC for this great forum that we're running today and for the invitation to AIFC. And I apologize that the CEO of Business Connect that I work for cannot make it. He's been called away, so I'm very pleased to be able to step in. And I've had the pleasure of working with both the City UK. I don't know if you can see me. I don't know if I'm on video here at all, but Anatoly?
Yes, we can see you.
Oh, no, well, so there's some slight tech issues. So as I say, I've had the pleasure of working with working for the City UK, in fact, from the early days when we began to work with Astana as an international financial center, and Governor Kelimbetov, who used to be the head of the Central Bank of Kazakhstan and then took over as governor of Astana. Why did London, why did the UK, and why did a number of other countries, in fact, choose to work with Astana? Well, I think it's about the reasons why IFC exists. It was about the benefits of cooperation over competition. I think the UK felt that by working with, I guess, what would be called a new market, an emerging economy, there would be benefits there. In the first case, it was actually transferring legal skills. I don't know if many of you know, but Astana International Financial Center operates on English language and is based on the principles of the laws of England and Wales. And so one of the first things that London was looking at was sharing that experience, effectively creating an environment that looked like the UK to a degree, but was based on international standards and international best practice. And of course, that both allows access into that market because there's a de-risk element, there's a trust element. And of course, that's where international sort of business works. So Astana International Financial Center itself was formally established 2 years ago. And I think colleagues talked, if you'll allow me, eloquently about what an IFC does. Effectively, it's a financial ecosystem. I think Wayne just a moment ago described the changing definition of an IFC in these current times, in these this COVID period, in the fact that IFCs perhaps were once seen as either a geographic location, everything in one place. We ourselves in Astana have a court and arbitration center, we have a stock exchange, we have a regulator, and we have a fintech hub. I'll briefly touch on that in a moment. So we are actually located in one place. London, of course, is more of a cluster, and other centers such as Moscow have looked at those options of physical centers or clusters. But now, as I think Huberta said, an IFC now is an example of interconnectivity of various financial and professional services. And now, in this period, we're looking at international connectivity. We're talking about the need for cooperation. So perhaps a long example as to why London and why other centres looked at cooperating with what was then a brand new financial centre in Astana. I think that what an IFC does, and I'll come on to where we got to with what we're doing with innovation. In Astana's case, it was a diversification agenda. The first president wanted to diversify the economy of the country away from its traditional reliance upon oil and gas and mining. It was also a degree to make the country economically resilient. And so there is a degree of introducing international best practice and standards. And I think the UK particularly has assisted with our corporate governance agenda, sharing, just as it did in the early days with legal, corporate governance standards and principles which we're developing. And of course, that then makes us as a centre more attractive for investment. And of course, a financial centre is also a de-risk environment. For Astana in particular, and for Kazakhstan, where we are based, and for the region, if you're an investor, you may want a few degree of surety that if you put money in, you're going to get it out. And so what we see ourselves is creating through best practice, through international standards, through court and arbitration, a de-risk centre. And then finally, an international financial centre, I think, is a creative centre. Not only should it be coming up with policy recommendations to policymakers, looking at best practice that can become policies of the country, and in many ways we ourselves see ourselves as a template for best practice in Kazakhstan, which then emanates out and the region. That we are looking at best practice internationally, and we are forming that into recommendations, and we are looking to our governments, our actual policymakers to make that real. And so when it comes to innovation, what we are doing in AIFC, I think would be recognizable across the world, and especially if you go to Toronto, if you go to London, if you go to many of my colleagues' countries here, you will see within the financial centre effectively the start to finish process of from a startup to funding to growth. And especially at this time when access to finance is a critical factor for startups, for SMEs, and it was referred to earlier that WAIFC has done some significant work in looking at what countries and IFCs are doing to support the SME environment during these times, and there'll be a report coming out in a month or so on that, and I believe that the facts and figures from that show the significant attention that has been paid to this issue. But what you will see in Astana is a fintech hub and a digital hub, and all of these have been reviewed internationally, and we've worked out how you support a young startup. The one thing that I've recognized from, and Anatoly referenced my time in Moscow, is that there is significant untapped talent in the region, in Russia, in Kazakhstan, in Uzbekistan, significant untapped talent. What we are seeking to do in IFC is to retain that talent, to fund that talent, and to grow that. And I think as that grows, and we see with the IT industry in particular, that crosses borders, that goes international. So forgive me if that was rather a long sort of preamble into Astana and how we grew, but thank you very much for the opportunity, Anatoly. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Steve. And we're about to finish our session. We have a couple minutes left, and I would like to ask Johan Biedermann, who is the Managing Director of the World Alliance of International Financial Centers, maybe to sum up and give some closing remarks. And of course, you have quite a vast expertise in fintech. If you could just comment on that as how you see fintech and what role it's playing in coping with COVID.
Thank you, Anatoly. First of all, my best wishes goes to Nicolas Markel from Luxembourg for Finance, who is not feeling well today, and replacing him in the panel. I hope he will be much better soon. We have heard a lot about the World Alliance and our work from all our speakers, our global leaders from the financial industry. And I think we have found out a big strength of all of us, which is diversity and also collaboration. My impression is this year, on one hand, has been challenging. It's a health crisis, has also been challenging for all our economies, but also this year brings several opportunities for all of us. We have heard about innovation, in particular digitalization, which is affecting the financial industry. And now I think this development has even accelerated this year. Trends to cashless payments, and also we see a growing trend in open banking. If you have time tomorrow, another interesting topics are digital currencies. There will be a highly interesting webinar tomorrow organized by Qatar Financial Center together with us on central bank digital currencies, which definitely will have an impact in the coming years on financial centers in one way or the other, starting in mainland China and in Sweden. And of course, you have addressed the topic of fintech. This is of course impacting all of us in different ways. In some of our member countries, more on the consumer side first, via tech platforms. For other financial centers of the World Alliance, it's more impacting SMEs, SME finance. This is developing. Our strengths, I've mentioned this, is cooperation among the members of the World Alliance. And I'm very happy that we are now 18 members since yesterday, because Rwanda Finance became our third member from Africa. We are very happy about this. Among our members, there's a very positive spirit of collaboration. We exchange best practice, we work together, and together we are much stronger. This is my strong feeling. Working on the economic recovery, bringing our strengths together, and joining forces. Fintech, on one hand, this is something where a very important topic is connecting the ecosystems, setting joint standards. Also, maybe in the long run, establishing something which in the European Union is called passporting, or mutual recognition. This is maybe quite a way to go for all of us. But this was, of course, greatly benefits fintech companies who want to expand globally. But also, we have mentioned this. There are a lot of other topics which are important, like sustainable finance, and also the intersection of fintech and sustainable finance, which I sometimes call SDG fintech. So fintech companies, young startups addressing social finance issues, from climate up to social topics. So a lot of things we can do together and where we can learn from each other. And I'm sure we will hear more of this in the coming panel. And it's a great pleasure for me, supporting all of you in the World Alliance. And back to you, Anatoly, and many thanks for organizing this exciting forum.
Thank you very much, Johan. And several members of the Alliance are now preparing special reports in different areas, and perhaps we should conduct such events more often, also using this opportunity to present the different research the members are working now at the moment. So I would like, we're close to finishing the session. I would like to thank each panelist today. And again, it's Dr. Parag Hanna, founder and managing partner of FutureMap, Hubertus Fett, managing director of Frankfurt Main Finance, Mr. Alexander Voloshin, representing Moscow International Financial Center, chairman of Forum Analytical Center, Yusuf Mohammed Al-Jada, CEO of Qatar Financial Center, Wayne Evans, Managing Director, International Trade and Investment, the City UK. Jennifer Reynolds, President and CEO of Toronto Finance International. Johan Biederman, Managing Director of YFC. And Steve Bourne, representing Astana International Financial Center Business Connect. So we have this session, the second session coming up, the so-called technology session. And the topic will be technology and innovation, reigniting economic growth after COVID-19. So please bear with us, and we're about to start the second session.
Thank you.
Well, we're back, and we're now starting second session, the technology session. Again, we will focus on technology and innovation, reigniting economic growth after COVID-19. And today's speakers are Professor Michael Mainelli, Director of ZTN Group Limited, Heba Al-Masri, Managing Director of Qatar Sports Tech, and Zamir Shukhov, the CEO of Global Venture Alliance. And first, we will turn to Professor Michael Mainelli. Again, ZTN Group, many of us, of course, know very well since they, for a number of years, issuing a special GFCI report, a Global Financial Center Index, quite well known. But today, recently, ZTN Group has issued the Smart Center Index, CSI. Mr. Mainelli, where you in general evaluate readiness of international financial centers in introducing new technologies. What are the characteristics of IFCs that do this well? Why is TechFin, as you call it, as opposed to FinTech, so important to international financial centers?
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. I was asked really today on the subject, which is technology and innovation, but looking at how this might reignite economic growth after COVID-19. I thought I would just spend a few minutes as sort of sharing a wider scene. And I think it's important really because I believe we're going to see some fairly interesting changes to the definition of a center. The reason I raise that is that centers have traditionally been areas of high physical intensity. We're traditionally used to the idea that a center, actually, could you just do me a quick favor? Could you just pit back that you're hearing me fine?
Yes.
Yeah, great, okay.
Yeah, I can hear fine.
Traditionally, centers have relied on physical intensity and density, really. And that has clearly been called into question by COVID. When we issued GFCI 28 2 weeks ago, in fact, the quote I used was the City of London has had a torrid time, but the area of Southeast England financial services. So what I wanted to share on these slides were some of the things from our Smart Centers Index. The idea really being that I believe that city centers are going to change tremendously post-COVID. They've taken a serious economic hit, and we're moving more towards a regional structure. I think the second thing is we've long spoken about fintech. Every time we talk to financial centers, it's basically green finance, fintech, perhaps ethical finance and social inclusion. Those are the big topic areas that financial centers like to dwell upon. But in truth, finance itself has been moving more technical. In fact, it was in July that we were looking for the first time at the actual application of quantum computing to portfolios, not theoretically, but being used quite actively in North America since July. But it's been something we've been speaking about and writing about for nearly 25 years. So we're seeing changes there in the idea of what even fintech is. But as you mentioned in your introduction, quite kindly, TechFin. And arguably, if innovation and technology have been the means of economic growth over the last century and a half to 2 centuries, without question, the idea of finance connecting with the real economy requires us to be deep into technology in its widest sense. And finance is therefore only an enabler to that type of technology. And finally, as we look at areas, for example, such as embedded finance, and I see this perhaps more clearly in China than I see it in other places where we tend to be quite siloed. Embedded finance means that all the various transactions that one might do, whether it's health transactions as you get scans done or tests, whether it's about energy production and solar energy and wind farms, recording what's being manufactured and bought and sold, if finance cannot operate the way it is, which is a separate silo of payments, discrete really from the underlying transactions that are occurring with great rapidity. So our Smart Centers Index, I do hope you can see the slides, shows you here very much the idea of looking at this in the same way that we've looked at the Global Financial Centers Index or the Global Green Finance Index, or in fact, Zien has been in this space. This isn't new for us. We've been in the technology space for 25 years. We've in fact been running a Global Intellectual Property Index for nearly 15 years as well. So the Smart Centers Index began with us looking in particular about 8 years ago at what made a smart center. And we began to realize that far too much of the focus was on the fintech side and not actually on the wider science and technology side. So we're measuring 3 dimensions: innovation, creative intensity, and delivery capability. And a fairly standard approach for us, which is to develop a deep taxonomy where we can try and get some detail into it. And we're tracking, as ever, about 100 to 150 different types of indices that feed into this. Now, our top 20 centers, we published a previous edition of this about 3 years ago in a beta version. We're still settling down here on what constitutes a smart center. Some of these you would see as fairly traditional, but I would point out San Francisco and Boston right up there in a way that the WAIFC might not think about, although San Francisco has been doing better and better really in our Global Financial Centers Index over the years. So we're seeing that there's a different cut here. I am a little disturbed at some of the results in that we believe Chinese centers to be much stronger in this space than they turn up on our index, but that may reflect a small bias in this index towards Western European respondents, although it has been out globally. We haven't had as many Asian respondents as we would have liked. This slide is looking at the 3 dimensions and how they feature as components in the leaders. The point to take away from here is that all 3 elements of the index, the innovation support, the creative intensity, and the delivery capability, are of roughly equal importance for those centers that get it right. It's quite similar in some ways to what we see in GFCI, GGFI, or the Global Intellectual Property Index. You really, to move up into the top ranks, you have to have every component in a good way. You can't isolate a single component and get close to the top in that regard. It turns out as well, when we look at different areas of competitiveness, as expected, different centers do more or less well. And again, across the 6 areas of competitiveness that we look at, the larger centers quite clearly in this turn out to be centers that are capable of functioning in all 6 areas with high degrees of competence. Well, a lot of people would say, well, that's great, but what can I actually do about it? Well, one of the arguments traditionally in the science and technology sector has been to plead for more funds. Actually, that is normally a mistake. I would point you to some work done nearly 25 years ago by Sir Terence Keeley, The Economic Laws of Scientific Research. He pointed out, in fact, that direct subsidy for research displaced private sector research as a multiple. In other words, the more that central government spent on R&D, the less R&D actually occurred in the entire economy. I can speak with some authority on this subject, as for a number of years, in fact, for 6 years, I was controlling about 40% of UK government R&D. And I saw this effect firsthand and have become quite skeptical about direct support for research and development, except in particular areas. But that does not mean that there aren't things that government and policymakers really can do to make a smart center thrive, or we wouldn't be doing the index. So some of these things are really about trying to get it right. How can you put enough policy in place that you are supporting innovation, but not so much that you stifle it? And looking here at a variety of regulatory approaches that you can use, They broadly fall, we think, into three categories: economic regulation, which is not to be sniffed at. There was a particular period here in the United Kingdom with which I was familiar, the brain drain, particularly of the 80s and early 90s, when people would deliberately go to America because that's where they could flourish. And they were able to flourish because the environment wasn't about direct subsidy, but it was definitely about one of being able to bring ideas, have them protected, and get finance to develop them and move forward. Whereas in the UK, we were focused on direct support for startups and a variety of government industrial policy programs, each of which successfully destroyed any industry that it paid attention to. And that's aerospace, electronics, high computing. And many of you will remember, of course, Japan and MITI and its fifth generation computing in the 1980s, leaving effectively the Japanese software industry stranded for nearly 3 decades. So we're not talking about that type of support, but we are talking about regulatory and business support for startups, monopolies and antitrust law, the ability to merge easily. On the social regulatory front, well, people like to go to regions and centers where they can live well, and that's clearly important. They also, of course, look for things like job security, and that can cut 2 ways. You obviously want good employment contracts. You want contracts that don't bind people in too tightly into various non-compete clauses. On the other hand, you do need to promote the safety of intellectual property and trade secrets. So there are a lot of regulatory approaches, and I'm sure we can discuss them. Personally, when it comes to COVID-19, I think it's going to be symbiotic. Financial centers are going to need more. They're going to be seeing that it's going to be difficult to describe yourself as a financial center. If everybody's working from home, you're going to be much more a regional cluster. That leaves the centers empty, and we need to fill those. And we're going to, I believe, need to deploy finance for creating the new technology that will reignite economies after COVID. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Professor Mainelli, I mentioned at the beginning the GFCI index, and thank you, of course, for presenting the SCI, but not long ago, there was a report, and could you just expand a little bit on GFCI in a bit more detail, how it correlates with the CSI, SCI, I'm sorry, and whether you could indicate some trends, some examples of those financial centers that have improved by much, some interesting facts from the recent report and some trends.
The correlation with GFCI is reasonably strong. I say reasonably. It's I think we ran an R-squared of about 0.56 or something on it. But it is a different index, and it does measure different things, and it does come up with different results. So I think that's the sort of area that's the way that they cross over. There is a particularly good crossover with another index I don't think any of you will have seen, our Global Intellectual Property Index, and that's used by policymakers in science and technology over the last, I think, 12 to 15 years. That does have a good correlation. So the first thing that centers get right is that they have a good patent. They've got a good copyright, which is extremely important in the software sector. They've got good design, and they've got good trademark control. And so China in particular has come up extremely well over the years in all of those regards, and that shows up in the centers. The second area is fitting it all together. I'd pick an odd city perhaps, but Boston comes to mind. And Boston exemplifies a few things, not starting as a particularly good cluster in traditional terms. Obviously it's very historic based on shipping, but that has changed. Quite a lot of awkwardness over airport links and things like that, but the cluster has grown out of the universities, and it has continued largely because in Boston, the government there, the state government, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has put in a tremendous amount of small business support. And the urban renewal that began in Boston in the 70s, again, unremarked by many people who don't understand it, it really changed the entire city landscape. So the city became much more welcoming to startups, much better at street level. About 10 years ago, it removed a major blockage, which was a motorway, which just cut up all the ability to people to hang out together. And Boston has become a real entrepot, and it features quite clearly in getting all three together, particularly the social aspects of the city. It's now seen to be an extremely livable city and has moved up. And it was not, for those of us with longer memories, that's not the way Boston was in the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm. Mentioning China, how do you see China? Could you already call it #1 technological leader, or it still has a way to go?
China certainly has a ways to go, but it's difficult. And of course, you should compensate these things for the size of GDP and size of population. But we are surprised not to see it running at sort of number 5 to 8. Well, the centers at 5 to 8. They're a little bit further down than we believe they should be placed. My personal view of China is that it's a genuine powerhouse. In fact, we're running a European-Chinese science and technology exchange. Yen does a lot of this. It's not on the finance side, it's our technology side. And we're running a major exchange with the Chinese on Thursday morning. And what is interesting there is that they are coming forward, not just with the science and technology people, but also with people from the central bank and also bankers and investors. So it's a complete mix there. Whereas here in Europe, when I've been pitching this, I can't really seem to get the bankers to come in because they find the discussions too technical. And I think where China might really shine in this regard is that the elite in China are not, as they are in much of the West, lawyers. The elite are engineers. And they have a very good understanding of science and technology and can participate with some confidence in these conversations. They understand what the basic science is and what its applicability is. They understand the scale of the engineering task to roll it out. They've got a reasonable grasp of economics, and they can see the investment opportunities. So it's a much easier play in China than it is where we've become quite siloed in the West.
It's a critical comment to understand the difference. Thank you so much, Professor Mainelli. And we have Zamir Shukhov, who is the CEO of Global Venture Alliance. And GVA is an international company with substantial expertise in innovation, infrastructure, ecosystems. Zamir, can you highlight any examples of how such infrastructures helped in fighting against COVID-19? Some cases of projects, and just in general, if you could say a few words about GVA.
Thank you so much, Anatoly, for inviting me today, and I'm greeting the rest of the speakers and the viewers of the conference. Yes, COVID has been a real challenge for the innovation ecosystem, and we've got, I would say, a little bit hurt as a private innovation ecosystem, as well as everybody else out there in the world. And what we do is we work a lot with startups and corporate clients, where we help big companies find the right technologies for their needs. And when COVID hit, a lot of companies were not prepared for what started to happen, especially in terms of the lockdown. So let me give you a few examples of the things that were done in the world by our partners as well to fight or to tackle these issues. First example that I wanted to bring on how these private ecosystems fight COVID is what was done by Plug and Play in Silicon Valley. And they launched a special accelerator track, which they called COVID-19 accelerator. Obviously, they were one of the very first ones to respond to the problems that were happening. And when we say using these technologies or using innovation to fight COVID, we don't just mention the health issues or the things that were there in the first place. So health tech and technologies that could fight, help find the solution, like molecular diagnosis, remote patient monitoring, some ventilators, some innovative masks, and all of these other things. Those were important, and so those were the solutions that our colleagues in Plug and Play were looking, in the first place. But at the same time, everything else also got affected. Let's say supply chain and industry, everything stopped. The borders were closed. So we had to find some solutions that would help large businesses to overcome these difficulties as well. We have problems with social distancing in the management. We needed some new technologies, to scale after the shutdowns, because many factories and many companies had to be shut down because of this. So another track that was very interesting of the technologies, enterprise technologies. When we're talking about the new world, right? So how do we transfer the knowledge in between the organization when everybody is separated, when everybody's in their homes? How do we work with our customers in a new way? The legal and compliance questions, project management was a large issue also. Like now you have to manage thousands of people online. So all of these things could be solved with technologies, and that's what Plug and Play was doing. As well, if you think about the industries that got hurt the most, I would say the travel industry and the retail industry, and the FMCG, the food, the restaurant industry got hurt a lot. So technologies that could help them, let's say food delivery, that's something that was very actively growing in Moscow. Since we are located in Moscow, we've seen how these services really started growing, without any additional, marketing and advertisement. They were seeking for staff and for employees, and they were actually hiring employees from the companies that had to let go of some people. So this is the great initiative that was launched by colleagues in Plug and Play. We tried to match this initiative. So we have our own website. We call it GVA Anti-COVID Initiative. So what we did is we collected over 250 startups for maybe a month. And then we try to do some matchmaking with our colleagues in the corporate world. And one more thing I wanted to mention so these are the things that we try to find solutions for current problems, using technologies, to fight them. But there's another side that wasn't mentioned too many times. And this is a personal side of the problem. What I mean by that is, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of CEOs, a lot of people in top management of the companies, they got in a situation where they actually were burning out. They couldn't figure out what to do. They couldn't find these problems with their, regular solutions. So a lot of people were just, breaking down emotionally. And there's another project I wanted to mention that was launched by our friends in Forbes, Russia. They actually created a website. They call it Ontology One, and they launched a project where there were a lot of personal coaches, psychologists, helping people with their mental state. Because, these breakdowns, a lot of people were unsure about what was happening with their future. So they did this free 30-minute coaching sessions, which helped a lot of entrepreneurs to overcome these difficulties and actually get back on track. So these are the couple of initiatives I wanted to mention about what was done and what could be done with technologies in COVID.
Anyway, I wanted to ask you a question. Since GVA is also a venture fund, you mentioned different development programs, but in terms of investing now, how do you see the venture market globally, and maybe particularly in Russia and the region where you have the your focus? What do you see the latest developments? Could you please tell us your opinion?
Yeah, of course. Well, I would say that COVID actually showed that there are some real gaps in the way we believe that innovation is being inhaled by the general population, because we work with innovations on daily basis, and we're all technocrats, as they say. We are early adopters, so we try to use and test every technology there is. But when you talk about the general crowd, or even when you talk about large companies that have thousands of people, technology is not very well adopted there yet. And we've encountered these problems, especially when you were talking about the educational system and the project management for large companies. We saw that most of the staff, most of the people that were working there were actually technically not prepared, and they couldn't adopt the technologies fastly enough. So what we started seeing in the fields of investment, a lot of projects that could actually teach people how to deal with technologies started growing fast. We're talking about ed tech in that direction. What can you do when you don't know how to work with a computer, with software, with other things. So that's one of the things that started growing. Another thing that we started seeing is HR technologies, like hiring and recruitment technologies, because now, since everything is online, companies in large cities like Moscow, they started looking into hiring a distance, recruitment teams from other cities with the same quality of work, but for much lower wages. So we started seeing shifts in HR and how the hiring process is happening. So for those things, big companies started looking for special technologies that would allow them to do sourcing of the talent from distant cities. So that's another thing that we saw as a trend. Also, replacing the human has also been an interesting thing. Finding some AI technologies or some algorithms that could do work better, since it's a distant work, rather than a human being. So everything that is connected to documents, everything is connected to some routine day-to-day things that could be done by an algorithm rather than a human. And now companies, there is a joke like that: who's the main driver of your digital transformation? Is it CEO, CTO, or COVID-19? Actually, in the majority of scenarios, it was the COVID that actually forced these companies to start implementing these technologies. Now, when you talk about the ventures investment, of course, we look at the markets as they grow, and we look at the segments of the startups, of the technologies that actually, their business is growing fast. That's one of the, identifiers of a good deal for an investor. So we started to see these trends that a lot of software B2B services started growing really fast because they were substituting some ancient technologies that existed in the companies. And, we started looking into investing in those things as well. That's if I could answer the question.
Yes, Zamir, thank you so much. And we'll take just a 1 minute break before we go to our next speaker. And we're back. We still have some difficulty to connect to Qatar. I hope we'll fix it. But in the meantime, I would like to tell a few words about Moscow Innovation Cluster Fund. I happen to lead this project. It's rather a new project. We just started just a little bit over than a year ago. And in the heart of this project is a digital platform. The project is driven by the city of Moscow, so it belongs to the city, but we are organized as a non-commercial fund. And so we launched, last summer we launched this digital platform offering different innovative companies from Moscow and whole Russia register on this platform. It's i.Moscow. For now, it's just in Russian language, but I will describe, of course, what it is about. So at the moment, it combines a number of digital services to help business promote cooperation among them and to ease finding partners, investment, or technologies. So it's a huge database of patents and different IP. This is also one of our, let's say, aim to business is the different financial aid that we're providing to technology companies. And we're managing some of the financial aid ourselves, as well as we are aggregating the different financial aid provided by the Moscow city or other institutions, I would say. In the first session, it was also mentioned that some case of Germany where there was a big program of state guarantees to support banks and distributing loans to SMEs. This is what we're also doing by providing 70% guarantee for loans to SMEs. And many of the financial aid provided is digitalized, so it's possible also to fill out all the necessary forms and load all the necessary documents right on the platform. Also the goal is, of course, to do digital profiles of these innovative companies in terms of their technology or applicable industry or the specification of their product or service. So again, to make it a lot easier for corporations and investors find the proper technology. At the same time, we're working with corporations as well to source their specific demands towards what technology they need in order to respond to certain technological needs that the corporations are experiencing at the moment. And to help this, also we are conducting our own development programs. These are acceleration programs or technological challenges. And probably the uniqueness of the programs we are running is that at the bottom, we are gathering together tens of different corporations working together. And sometimes these corporations could be direct competitors, but they all learn in the end that by working together and by sharing what each of them is doing at the moment in terms of application of different technologies is in the end gaining a lot more. And that's why we are collecting the best expertise that there is on the market, and not only from corporations, but also from the investment side, because we are at the same time attracting different investors, investor funds, business angels, venture funds to participate closely in our programs, see how the technologies offered by different projects are viewed by the corporations. We agree with corporations on guaranteed paid pilots for those technological projects participating in our programs. So pretty much we are guaranteeing to technological companies that their product will be 100% integrated in one of those many corporations participating in the programs. And of course, we are as well inviting leading universities as well participate in these programs because they are giving also that expertise and sometimes infrastructure that is needed by those technological companies. I already mentioned the financial aid that we're providing, the digital platform, the different development programs that we are running. We find that the digital platform is unique. We haven't seen anything similar launched by other innovation or financial centers. And of course, sometimes we're joking and calling ourselves a startup because we This platform, of course, is going to be an ongoing process, and we'll continue adding more and more services reflecting those needs expressed by technological companies. And of course, for us, it's very important also to work together with such organizations as WAIFC, because we're now also trying to set up a certain institutional infrastructure that will connect Moscow and Moscow Innovation Cluster with the respective counterparts in other countries and cities, so we could provide for transfer of technologies both ways. We already have a very good example, as we recently in September signed a big agreement with the Chinese Zhongguancun Innovation and Science Park. This is the biggest organization in China, agglomeration of almost all innovation players that there are on the market, both originating in China and internationally. Zhongguancun Park provides for more than 20% of GRP of Beijing. That's where it's located, and it's also run by the city administration and well run. So in the nature of this agreement is actually to provide for this institutional infrastructure, where we have identified 6 different areas, technological areas, where we'll be sourcing projects both in China and in Russia, exchanging these projects so they can get the maximum local expertise, since of course Russian projects will be trying to penetrate the Chinese market, and at the same time we will allow for Chinese products to come to Russian market. And there will be a special acceleration program, again, different expertise, getting to know the local companies, pilots. And we're looking now into building up such infrastructure with different other countries. We're discussing this with India, Singapore, the Silicon Valley. So when we see that this has already been mentioned by several speakers today, now cooperation is much more important than competition. So by building this, we try to set up this international links. This is what we are as the Moscow Innovation Cluster, and I would be happy to pass the word to our other speaker. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, the technical problem is great, and we cannot get Qatar online. But of course, it would be very interesting to listen to what Qatar sports tech is doing, especially taking into account that the World Cup is coming soon, and but I'm sure in some of our other events we'll certainly invite Qatar to give us a presentation. So today's session was again on innovation and technology, how it helps us to cope with the pandemic, with the COVID-19, and of course special thanks to those who participated in the session today. This is Professor Michael Mainelli, the director of ZYN Group Limited, and Zamir Shukhov, the CEO of Global Venture Alliance, and myself, Anatoly Valetov, the head of Moscow Innovation Cluster. We still have another very short session to go, where we invite several international startups to give some pitches. So I will then pass it on to our next moderator, Vladimir Diakov, who will present the startups and hold the session. Thank you.
speech session. Today we invited 3 international startups from different financial centers. First is ViewApp, Alexander Fokin from our homeland, from Moscow. The project is the application for remote inspections for insurance, banks, and leasing companies. Alexander, welcome.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Alexander, we have a moment before your presentation, so maybe some words about application and how you are developing it in our COVID-19 conditions.
Yeah. Thank you, Vladimir, for the question. It's a very interesting situation about the COVID and possibilities that it gives to our application because it's a remote system of inspecting any objects. Now our team works from homes. We can do everything. We can connect to with our clients every time,
Alexander,
every day, and it's very simple to organize.
I think you can share your screen now.
Okay.
Okay. Just trying to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, now we will try to share your presentation from our side. Alexander, you can begin your presentation. We will, yeah. Okay, excuse us for technical difficulties. We are back. So, Alexander, you can begin your presentation one more time.
Okay, I see my presentation on the screen. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I represent ViewApp. Our team has 15 years insurance market experience. We sold over $150 million of P&C insurance policies. Also, we settled 500,000 auto insurance claims. All this time, we were very unhappy about 2 problems. Next slide. High cost of inspections and fraud due to photo forgery and substitution of any photo and
next
video.
Next slide, please. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the slide with our problems we are fighting with. To solve these problems, we created ViewApp and gave it to our clients. ViewApp is a platform for creating and managing any types of inspections and the mobile application with photo and video fraud protection. Next slide. That's the inspection process before ViewApp. Call to the client, fix the date and time to show the damaged property or car, make an inspection and send photos to the company's office. So the metrics, it takes 1 week, it costs up to $200, and the company can face up to the photo fakes. Give ViewApp to your clients. Using ViewApp, the client can make an inspection himself. It will take only 2 minutes. It will cost cheaper, and the inspection will be protected from photo forgery with our secret sauce. I will make a small pause to change the slide. Yeah. All photo and video are not kept in the gallery and cannot be taken and changed by the user. Application is collecting the data from user's smartphone like GPS, motion sensor, and compass, and you can be sure that the client is not cheating you. In Russia, the insurance companies, banks, and leasing companies spent over $150 million on the appraisers. And now Russian companies are happy to save their money and increase profit for their investors using View app. That's why we have contracts with big Russian insurance banks and leasing companies like Sberbank Insurance, VTB, Alpha Group, Raiffeisen Bank, Societe Generale, and Caterpillar. So this is the slide with one of our success stories. Here you can see the real estate claim settlement case. Our clients, Sberbank Insurance, gave their customers the opportunity to use the application for create and process the claim using a smartphone. Thanks to this technology, Sberbank Insurance Company can save up to $300,000 in the first year of work with View app. Also, their sales department got the great sales competitive advantage because now settlement payment is real in only 2 hours. We have recently integrated a car damage recognition system. This system allows to significantly reduce the loss ratio in car insurance. Thanks to the convenient web interface, the employees of the insurance companies will spend less time on processing inspections and making decisions on car damage. And next one, please. What can our clients also do using the platform? View app can inspect trucks, special machinery. Also cars for preliminary inspection for buying the policy and car damage. Also real estate. It's interesting for our clients, insurance companies and websites. And all types of claims where inspection of the object or documents is required. So we want to go worldwide because the market is big. Next. That's why we have some competitors, Russian 0F and the US-based company Snapsheet Claims. Both companies can do car inspections, but only View app can offer their customers the advanced inspection constructor for any types of inspections. Now we made our first steps towards the international clients from Kenya, Nigeria, also Iran. After meeting with these clients, we concluded that the problem in these countries, the problems in these countries are the same, and View app can save the insurers money and improve user experience and protect against any photo forgery and substitution photo fraud. This year, we have all faced with the coronavirus pandemic. Our business had to do remote customer integration systems. Without View app, your clients must meet with the expert, but it's a risk of infection. Using View app, your clients can do the inspection themselves without any risk of infection. So this is our joke about the coronavirus. Using your View app, you prevent coronavirus expansion. Yes, it's real. I am Alexander. I can answer any questions if you have. I'm very happy to present our platform.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you very much. And let me introduce our experts. Zamir Shukhov from GVA. And Alana Greshka, the partner of Digital Economy Fund, former manager of Raiffeisen Bank Innovations. So the first question is for Zamir. Zamir, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Vladimir. Hi.
Yeah, I know you are doing pretty good analytics about solutions in insurance and fintech in America, in Europe. What can you say about chances for expansion for WAIFC? What can you probably offer?
Well, I like the presentation. Thank you, Alexander. Even though we had a little bit of technical difficulties, I saw the slides. I believe that the offer, the value proposition that you're making is very interesting because you're shortening in the time and you're creating this, fraud-free system where it's, much more easier to get the right information, the pictures and the videos of the object. I have a couple of questions though. I'm very interested in what the secret sauce really is, because you mentioned it's some secret technology, but how do you provide the quality of the pictures, and how do you prove that everything that you've provided is actually real?
Thank you for the question. So the main competitive advantage that we have is not our secret sauce. Yeah, you're right. That our main competitive advantage is the interface that we may interface to communicate with the client, and any type of inspection constructor, because there is no any other company that provide a constructor that insurance company can apply in one day. So, and also we collect many data from the gadget, and we started to develop the system how to make how to see in this all big data some strangers. So if you have 100,000 of car inspections, and you have face with the 100,000 first, you can see that something is wrong in this data, and we can provide this system as the fraud protection. Also, we developed the system that forces the photo substitution and introducing some changes in this. This is the content protector.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Let me ask you a quick question about the business model, because I'm seeing that this is a B2B software that you provide to insurance company and banks and car companies, and you allow them to use it to their customers. Mm-hmm. So the question here is, if we want to make sure that your company is successful, how your customer acquisition costs relate to your lifetime value. So how much do you spend on attracting the customer, and how much money that customer brings you in the period of using your technology?
Yeah, now we have many interest to our product and our company because of COVID-19. So we have no cost to acquisition because the customers come themselves. Insurance companies, leasing, and banks. Yeah, it's so. And our business model is the simple CPA model. They pay for every inspection. Yeah, we try to communicate with our potential clients to know a cost of inspection using other products or companies, contractors, and so we can reduce cost because our CPA model is cheaper and more protected and very fast delivery to the pocket of the client to do the inspection with their gadget.
Okay, thank you very much, Lana.
Thank you.
Do you have some short remarks about, your opinion how WAIFC can solve the bank's problems with, I don't know, loans, mortgages, whatever?
I would like to ask Alexander to share with us a success story, maybe without brand naming, but could you tell us about the metrics that you succeed during the pilots with the banks, financial institutions?
Yeah, Svetlana, I know you work in Raiffeisen Bank. This is our client, and I can share some metrics that I know from this client. So now we work in the collateral inspection, and we reduce sometimes the costs of this process. And also we started to work in the real estate mortgages, and this process improves and makes better I don't remember this word in English.
Maybe it's inspection process.
Not inspection process. When the customer wants to be the client of the bank in the mortgage, it must make the inspection, and sometimes it's not very cozy for client and for appraiser, and the deal cannot be done. And with View app, the client makes the inspection. This inspection is in the appraiser company in 10 minutes, and the appraiser can make the this appraiser report in only 10 minutes, and this is increase the percent of
customer satisfaction. The magic words, customer satisfactions. Okay. Thank you very much.
No COVID.
Yeah, no COVID. Thank you very much, Alexander. So we are moving forward. Just give us 1 minute for a short technical break, and we will go for the next presentation. Okay, we are back, and our next project is from Singapore. Let me represent you Heng Yu Lee, co-founder and CEO of Polaris InfoSec. And the project is about security and protection. Heng, can you hear us?
Yes, yep. Hi, everyone. Yep. So allow me to show my, I think someone will be sharing my slides, I think.
Well, I think we are sharing your slides, so you can just begin your presentation.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just find. I don't see the slide, so I can tell which is the slides I'm on.
Yeah, we are trying to do it.
Yeah, I can't see your screen, so I can't tell which slides we are on.
Just one moment, yeah. You can begin your presentation now. We are showing the slides that Polaris built next generation application security.
Yeah, I see it now. Okay. All right. So hi, everyone. I'm Heng, as introduced by Vladimir. I'm CEO and co-founder of Polaris. So Polaris is a web application security solution. So we actually built web protecting solutions to actually secure the web presence of internet-facing organizations. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the reason why we built this is because we have seen a lot of pain points when we serve as consultants to our customers. A lot of it revolves around having to pay a lot of money for technology that's difficult to deploy, and also a lot of what we call false positives, which is a lot of noise. So imagine you are a security analyst for a company and you get 1,000 alerts a day. So which one is real and which one is not real? You can't tell because you're overwhelmed. Yeah, and a lot of times smaller companies can't really afford a upfront cost for a security solution. It's not their priority. Yeah. So when we decided to build Polaris, we want to address some of these problems that was mentioned. Yeah, next slide, please. So on the very fundamental level, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it affordable for companies to defend themselves online, so that it actually raise the barriers of attack for attackers. So they are less motivated; they'll go somewhere else where it's easier target. Yeah, that's the fundamental goal we're trying to achieve. Next, please. Yeah. So this is our platform itself. It's live. It's production. It's serving customers. Next, please. We call it the Web Presence Protection platform. So what it does is, next slide. It actually, just a moment. It will handle your, it acts as a firewall between the whole internet and your website or your web API. Next, please. Yep. So this is how a normal user comes to your website, without a firewall. Next, please. Yeah, and with Polaris, we stand in between you and the whole web. So we act as like a filter. We observe the traffic. So we kind of tell you what is a real user, what's a hacker, what's a bot. So even with bots, there's good bots like Google crawlers, Yandex crawlers, and then there's the bad bots trying to scan and try to find loopholes in your site to exploit. Next, please. Yeah. So we have a global presence, but in this presentation, we're just showing some of the Asian locations that we have. We have global DDoS capabilities. We're able to defend and protect companies around the world. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah. Okay. So this is an overview of what we do in terms of web security. We have DDoS mitigation, which I mentioned. We can do basic web application firewall rules. We do API security. We give you SSL. We give you reporting. Next, please. We also incorporate a lot of AI features, artificial intelligence for machine learning. So we actually learn your web traffic, what's a normal user, what time your users come to a website versus a bot. And also we share this sort of attack information amongst all our sites that we protect as well. Next, please. And the third most important feature I want to share is threat intelligence. So threat intelligence is information about would-be attackers or potentially suspicious activity. So this is also from us scanning the whole web, trying to find what's dodgy website, dodgy bots, IP addresses that we will blacklist. We also do phishing detection. So we will detect if someone's trying to copy your website. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah. So what we do offer, especially times like COVID, is enterprise level, sort of support and service, because everyone's online and everyone's trying to make money, from their online stores or online presence. So we will be there to support our customers 24/7 to ensure that everything is smooth and there's no disruptions to their business. Next, please. So this is the overview of the kind of competitors that we have in the space. Our biggest competitor is actually Imperva, followed by Cloudflare, which I think most people are familiar with. So that's where we are heading towards in terms of feature, competition, and pricing. Yeah, next, please. So this is the global web application firewall market size, which is actually trending upwards, linearly. However, the other market that we want to capture is cybersecurity as a service. Next, please. Yeah, so this market is a much bigger market because when you sell them a platform for monitoring, they will come to you for additional services like, hey, I don't have a security officer in my company. I don't have an IT security guy. Can you help me when this incident hits? So we want to be there for them to offer them services whenever they're under attack. Yeah, next, please. So this is the overview of the global market share for web application security, which is currently quite overwhelmingly dominated by the big players, which we want to disrupt. Next, please. So we have a few strategies in terms of our go-to-market. We are sort of region-specific. We are targeting Asia. We're targeting, even actually Europe as well. So we focus on economies of scale. We focus on local language expertise. So when customers call us for support in their local language, we're able to provide that. Next, please. And these are some of the key areas and customers that we are serving right now. We serve cryptocurrency exchanges, which are high risk, online-based business, online PR, news publishers. We serve fintech companies. We serve esports and online gaming operators as well. So all these, the common thing among all these people, they rely on their online presence to make a living. Yeah. Next, please. So this is our kind of a sales and distribution model. We do distribution, channel distribution through partners. We do licensing with big telcos and operators. There is also a self-serve, sign up trial and then register model, and also we do some active sales and proof of concept with big organizations. Next, please. So this is the pricing point. It starts from $70 a month, which is quite affordable for most small and medium enterprises, and it goes up according to your risk and your traffic. Yeah, next please. So this is the kind of projected revenue stream we have for 2021, based on some assumptions we make on market size and the percentage of small and medium enterprises we want to capture. Next please. And this is next please. Yeah. So this is the kind of revenue that we project from offering services on top of the cloud subscription product that we do. Next, please. Okay, so this is some of our customers and our investors and supporters right now. We have some of the, I-71, which is based in London, Cylon. We have a cryptocurrency company. We have a university. We have a global infrastructure provider. Next, please. So this is the founding team, the co-founders. That's me, Heng, CEO, and we have my partner CK, which take charge of operations, and we have our CTO Tan. So we came from a background of cybersecurity experience. Next, please. Yep, this is our advisory board. We have people from Airbus Cybersecurity. We have people formerly from Akamai, and we have people who are one of the leading vulnerabilities researcher in the world on our board. Next, please. So this kind of like overview of the milestones we are at. We're about 2 years old. We launched publicly recently. Yeah, next. This is more investments, like we're looking for money anyway. All right, I want to enter my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Henk. I know that you are already in the Russian market.
Yes.
I read yesterday the article that you are in the final of Kaspersky competition.
That's right.
Yeah. So now I want to hear some opinion from our experts. Lana, what do you think? Why the info security is so important right now? What do you think?
I think because of the quarantine measures, most of the bank moved to remote working condition. So now banks have to protect and secure not only distance services given to clients, but also internal communication. So what we see the increase of wall of internal communication, though new, non-secure channels like Zoom, Telegram, WhatsApp, and this is a raise of the need of protection such of corporate communication. Even after pandemic, the bank will continue to provide distance services because from the other hand, it's a new effective way of doing business. From the other hand, it's new challenges. So I would like to ask some questions. For example, is it Polaris tool could somehow implement, maybe you already have some use cases, how you protect internal communication?
Sure. Okay, so we are primarily protecting web-based security. So, let's say for a bank or a financial institution, what we do is even within, internal large organizations, you have API calls within an organization. We protect those API calls. Also, because when you are a large organization, let's say you are, for example, JP Morgan, right? You have your website, internal website, where your staff use to access internal services, even over VPN or whatever it is. You want to prevent your staff from being phished, because what we realized during COVID-19 is the amount of phishing emails targeting corporate employees increased by more than 2 to 3 folds. So employees sometimes click on the links thinking that's from the colleague, it's a company website, and then you realize that it's not the case. So what we do is we actively monitor for new website domain registrations that look similar to a company's website. We also do a scan to see the main page, and see does it match, how many percent is it a match using machine learning. Yeah, so there's some of the things we do to protect enterprises as they work from home, work remotely. Yeah.
Okay, Zamir, probably some questions from your side. I don't know, maybe about implementation of such security and protection systems in education and distant education, which is quite actual right now?
Well, I really like that presentation, the technology, because every day, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of new websites appear, and most of those websites, they don't have any protection, because when it's a small or medium enterprise, they don't have the IT security guy, they don't have an admin, they always rely on the host provider to do the security. I actually had a recent situation, and one of our program websites got crashed, and it took us maybe 2 days to get it back online because there was no protection. It was one of the small projects that one of my team members was doing, but still, it was very unpleasant that I was sending links to people and to experts to look at the website, and it wasn't available because it crashed. So, mostly people rely on the host provider to protect the website from DDoS attacks and from hacker attacks. But what I like about your service is very simple. It doesn't take a genius. You just install it and it screens all the traffic. What I think your main advantage is the simplicity that you provided at a very low cost, and you provide the service around it. So I think if you're talking about the Russian market and what I see as an opportunity for the Russian market, a lot of media businesses, a lot of companies that rely on large amounts of traffic to their websites, and I know for sure they don't have a tight security. I can do maybe several introductions once you complete the Kaspersky competition. I think it'll be a good.
Oh, we completed it. So now we
completed. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, I can introduce you to some of those folks, because I know for sure they have millions of people visiting their website, on monthly basis, and they have no security whatsoever, and they're very vulnerable because their whole business is relying on the website because they provide information, news, etc.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think could be your low-hanging fruit, maybe for the Russian market.
Right. Just to add on to your point before we end, actually a lot of times the data breaches online from websites like airline booking sites, a lot of it also comes from web security, not properly configured web protection. So like for example, British Airways just got fined for having their whole customer database being breached. So I think a lot of companies are looking to protect themselves because the fine and the reputation loss is quite heavy, with GDPR, with all the privacy laws coming up.
Absolutely. And again, if you're talking about the Russian reality, we also have some regulations about the private data that the websites are collecting. So protecting that is something very important, and not everybody is doing it well.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. Thank you. Another, and I hope the last 1 minute break, and we will back with the last project from our pitch session. Welcome back. I was just glad to see you again. Our next and the last project in our presentation is Web Totem from Astana. This project is TechCrunch top pick of this year. You can begin your presentation. We will share it from our computer, so you just can give us some sign when we will put the next slide on the screen. Okay, you can begin.
Hello everyone, my name is Oljas. I am founder of Web Totem, which provides web security and monitoring for every website. Next slide, please. And the fact is that website security, it's a big deal. And this is an enormous market of over 200 billion. Next slide. And over 90% of websites are vulnerable to attack and can lose $300 billion annually due to hackers. Next slide. And websites are really an Achilles heel for most businesses. There are over 1.5 billion websites worldwide, but only 3% of these companies use security services, in spite of the fact that there are over 40 attacks every day. On the internet, we see website hacks as we have seen COVID pandemic. Nobody uses basic protection. That is the main reason why many of us get spam and phishing emails, download viruses from hacked websites, or see inappropriate ads. Next slide. And it's very complicated business to do this protection on the lots of all levels and lots of all possible different attacks. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about it. We do continuous monitoring and protection, so then you can just click and relax, as easy as putting on a face mask. Next slide. And how it works, you just add your website and our system automatically monitors your website. Next slide. And if you want to be more secure, you just install our security agents to your website. Next slide. And our system automatically installs firewall for your website. Next slide. And 10 external models for monitoring your website. Next slide. And of course, antivirus for your website. And next slide, please. And it's not good only for small businesses. It's also a perfect solution for enterprises if you want to monitor hundreds of websites in one dashboard. And for insurers, you can use our product for your cyber insurance service. Next slide, please. And in Central Asia, we have a major client and we monitor 150,000 websites. We have reduced the response time from a month to a day, the number of infected websites from 600 to 10 in whole country, and we help to prevent WannaCry attack. Next slide. And we have different clients in different segments in B2G, B2B, and small businesses. Next slide. And we began to distribute our solution through our corporate partners, cyber insurance services, hosting company, and through the creation of an environment such as WordPress plugin. In addition, thanks to our system, we generate monthly reports on cyber risks in various industries. Next slide. And our flexible prices support protection from one side to unlimited capacity. So any small businesses can afford $10 one-click security better. Next slide. And who we are? We are a group of practical ethical hackers passionate about cybersecurity who have been winning international hacking competitions for the last 3 years. Yes, we know how to hack and we just reinvest our expertise to create our cybersecurity solution. Next slide. And we started in the year of 2017 with a vision that we wanted to build the gold standard in web security. And last month, the famous IT conference in USA, TechCrunch, chose our solution as one of the interesting startups in cybersecurity. And next slide. And bonus for Qatar country, because we developed a really flexible infrastructure. For us, it's not a problem to monitor whole countries. And on this slide, you can see situation about Qatar National Domain Network. How many websites available, how many websites infected, and which technologies they use. And last slide, if you want to protect your website, follow the link on the slide, or if you're planning to make the internet safer, join us as partners. Security has never been so accessible and easy. My name is Oljas. I'm the founder of WebTotem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation. I personally like the part about practical, ethical hackers. Okay, some words from our experts. Zamir, are you impressed?
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, for some reason, I didn't see all the slides. I saw the beginning. But it's very interesting when the hackers are actually going to the bright side and start using their talents to do the protection. You know, one thing I think was very interesting and might help you guys to spread the word about the technologies is when you showed the map, you know, of Qatar ecosystem, and you said this is how many websites, this is how many infected, etc. I think those types of really short tests can allow you guys to penetrate the market much better, because people usually don't think about this problem until they encounter it. You know, nobody really thinks, website protection, whatever, until it crashes. When it crashes, they start running like chickens with no head, trying to find a solution and you know, calling everybody, posting on Facebook, etc. So I think it's the awareness of your product that is not out there yet on the market, on the mass market, let's put it that way. I mean, you have some early adopters, people who are in IT, who understand the dangers of the loopholes and of the, small or no security at all for the website. So, but the mass market, the majority of people are not aware of this. So I believe if you do, or if you provide a simple test, like click the button, inspect your website, and maybe a short algorithm will give them the potential dangers of what you don't have. That will allow you guys to grow faster and to get more customers.
Yes, and it's really a problem to aware small business because they don't think about cybersecurity unless something bad happens.
Exactly.
It's a reason why we publish reports. For example, last week we published a report about banks in Polish. We have clients in Polish, and we just published cyber risk assessment of Polish banks. We analyzed 33 banks in Polish and just show how
bad it is, huh?
Yeah, yes, and it was really good because we spent only 3,000 euros for our PR, and we collected about 100 leads, enterprise leads, and
very nice.
$37 per lead. For enterprise, it's really cheap.
Okay, and talking about banks, Lana, what do you think? Is it applicable for Russian banks as well? Maybe we can try to do the same with the Russian banks.
Why not? For example, we also work with PZU. It's an insurance company. It's a big insurance company in Poland, and currently they launched their cyber insurance service for SMEs, and they use our API for scoring SMEs websites. And after that, they're trying to sell cyber insurance service for these SMEs companies.
So I would like to add that if you are interested in the Russian market and the banks in Russia, please do share your use cases without naming the brand name. But if you show the potential clients, the banks, the possible what you can give them, what is your value proposition for the bank, show in advance. Show by revealing some use cases, metrics that you already get on your market. So because of course banks is very interesting to protect their sites, to protect their traffics, but it's essential information, it's essential data of the clients, and to be a partner of the bank, you already should have some expertise in this sphere and show that you already have some successful pilots with the banks.
Okay, thank you very much for your opinion. And now we are finishing our pitching session. One more time, want to thank all our participants. We had 3 companies from 3 different financial centers: Singapore, Moscow, and Astana. Thank you very much. We are going to the short break. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I hope we will meet you the next time quite soon. Well, it was a great pleasure for me and Anatoly to invite all of them for our forum session. And I hope you liked our solutions from the side of our startups, as well as that you enjoyed the opinion of our speakers. Thank you very much, and till next time.